The man, the myth, the legend, Super Testnet here. Here's the microphone for you, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right, man. So we talked about it a little bit earlier about your ordinals workshop. So why don't you describe just initially for people who are maybe like, I guess, newer to the idea, what's the difference between like ordinals and inscriptions?
Yeah, so the presentation was one of the funnest ones we've done here. I'm really excited that it went so well. I hope that all future ones go like that. The difference between inscriptions and ordinals. Ordinals don't take up any space in the blockchain. They are a new protocol that assigns numbers to every Satoshi. And they don't put anything on the blockchain. It's literally just, we're going to decide that the first Satoshi to be mined is labeled number 0, and the second Satoshi mined is going to be labeled number 1, and so forth, all the way through. And once you have this protocol, you can actually track stuff. And that's where inscriptions come in. Bitcoin's always had the ability to upload data to the blockchain, but now that when you use inscriptions, you upload data and then assign it to a particular Satoshi and say, like, this image of a monkey is associated with this particular Satoshi. And now I can send that Satoshi around, and like the monkey will show up in your wallet as well. So that's kind of ordinals and inscriptions.
All right, man. I'm going to have you dive into it then. What's your view on ordinals and inscriptions? Because you did teach a workshop. I mean, we brought it up, so yeah. and it went well. But what's your overall view on them?
Ban them, destroy them, get them out, kick them out of the blockchain. At least inscriptions. You can't really do that with ordinals because they're not on the blockchain. They're just a numbering system. But with inscriptions, yeah, I think the fact that you can upload whatever data you want to Bitcoin, or not whatever data you want, but 4 megabytes of data, I think that's a vulnerability. It is an attack vector on Bitcoin, and I would like to get rid of it by as best we can.
I gotcha. So then what was the motivation, I guess, behind the the workshop, and how did you, I guess, line it out? Because you kind of described it to me where you could essentially, almost block this from your node, right? I mean, so yeah, line out how you kind of did the whole workshop, and what I guess how you think it went. I mean, you already said that you thought it was one of the best workshops you were able to put on, so it was great stuff. So, how did you, I guess, structure it and dive into it?
Yeah. So one of the things that I value at PlebLab is in my experience, they don't shy away from controversy, and so they do they do workshops on all sorts of stuff, and I'm really glad they do that because it really brings light and attention to Bitcoin when you shine a spotlight on things. So when they asked me if I would do one on ordinals and inscriptions, the fact that it's a controversial topic didn't make me think I shouldn't do that. It made me think I should. I was like, that's more of that. Let's do more of that. And they didn't put any restrictions on me. They said you can make it however you want. If you want to tell people inscriptions are bad, that's great. Go for it. So I did. I made my presentation all about how they work, which is very informative for people. How to create them in case you like them, and how to block them from your own node. Because that's another thing I love about Bitcoin. Your node, your code. Right? If you don't want something on your node, you can take it off. It's yours. It's no one else's. So yeah, my presentation showed all 3 of those facets: how they work, how to make them, and then how to block them.
That's awesome stuff. So, do you have anything else planned for this week? Any more workshops or anything like that? Are you participating in the hackathon? And
yeah, I'm going to be a mentor in the hackathon. Okay. I'm doing the keynote at Startup Day. I'm doing trivia night with D++ tomorrow. I'm also going to be at Lit Devs tonight. So it's a busy week for Super Testnet, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. So Super Testnet, man, for those who don't know too much about you, why don't you, I guess, dive into, I guess, like what you do in the space, and feel free to, I guess, go as deep or as shallow as you want, because the audience can't see it here, but I can. So I mean, the voice behind Super Testnet. Why don't you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm a freelance software developer specializing in Bitcoin, the Lightning Network, and recently Nostr. And I've been in the Bitcoin space since, I've only been, by my definition, I've only been in it since 2017. I do have memories about Bitcoin from as early as 2010. I followed Satoshi on the Bitcoin Talk forums back when he
Oh
was
wow.
active on there. Um, but I never actually bought any until 2017. And to me, you're not really in it until you have skin in the game.
100%.
Um,
Well, I guess then what brought you to that? Because it seems like you have a very like an affinity to, building a lot of projects, a lot of
mhm.
coding and other things like that, and kind of just diving into all that. So, outside of, I guess, obviously like building some of the projects and other things, I guess why the delay then, of that 7 year gap where you were kind of like, I guess, dipping your toes in a little bit, but maybe not putting your skin in the game.
Yeah, it's a good question. I tend to be very methodical, or at least I was at the time very methodical in my decision making. And for a lot of those 7 years, I was soliciting feedback from people. I was talking to people about Bitcoin. I remember arguing with altcoin people in 2013, and I didn't even own any Bitcoin, but I was like, why are these altcoins a thing?
So you were
Litecoin
a
and them.
maxi from like early on then, huh?
But no, I don't think I am a maximalist
Okay.
because I value projects like Ethereum and Monero and all of those. I don't own any. I think they are bad money, but I value what they're the exper. Well, I view them as experiments, and I value what they're trying to do, even if I don't value their currency.
I gotcha. Okay.
So I don't think of myself as a maximalist because I pay a lot of attention to and try to imitate a lot of what I see happening on in those other projects. But yeah, so I don't really know exactly why I didn't buy in. I certainly liked Bitcoin. From 2010, I thought it was really cool that there was an alternative money that wasn't controlled by the government. I know early on, I thought that I didn't know Bitcoin was decentralized. My early impression of it was that it was like a competitor to PayPal, except instead of using the dollar, they made their own money. And it was only after it was during 2010 when Satoshi got mad about WikiLeaks being using Bitcoin, and like WikiLeaks back then, they got deplatformed by Visa and PayPal and these other ones, and Bitcoin was the only thing they could accept. And Satoshi got really mad about it. I think he got scared that Bitcoin was going to get attacked by the federal government, and he left. He left the project. And I think it was through that process, reflecting on it later, that it dawned on me that meant that he did that because he didn't have control. Bitcoin wasn't a company where he could create the money or just define who gets to use it. But even then, I didn't think of it. I didn't buy any. So, and I don't know why. But I know I solicited feedback. I talked to people about it. I asked questions, and in 2017, it was when Bitcoin crossed $1,000 for the second time. It had done it once in 2013, then it did it again in 2017. It caught my attention again, and I said, "I've been watching this thing for too long, and I just need some." I remember one thing. Back in the early days, I wanted to buy Casasius coins. I was looking up how to buy Bitcoin early on. I have like an account on Mt. Gox from 2012, and I never bought any Bitcoin on it. But I didn't know how to get any. Like Mt. Gox was a really weird website that wanted you to send your passport to the Chinese like embassy or something. They had like a really weird process to buy Bitcoin. There was Casasius coins, but they had a huge markup of like 50% fee on top of whatever.
Mhm.
Like if you were buying $20 of Bitcoin, you had to pay $30 to get it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be ripped off, so I didn't buy any using any of these methods. I was like, I can't buy Bitcoin privately. I can't get it from Casasius coins without getting ripped off, because you could just buy them by sending him money, and he would send them back in the mail, and that didn't require KYC. And then I wasn't in a position where I could mine at the time. So I just didn't buy any. I missed
Yeah.
out for years,
Yeah.
and just thought it was cool and was an admirer of the project from afar. In 2017, I also started learning to program. That was when I started doing that, and by 2018, the Lightning Network started coming out, and so very many of my first development projects were trying to figure out how Lightning works and just programming the Lightning Network. And then gradually I expanded from there into doing Bitcoin and Bitcoin script and Bitcoin transactions. And then Nostr came out, and I started working on that, and that's where I am.
Yeah. So do you think that you would have gotten into like coding and all that kind of stuff if it weren't for Bitcoin?
Yeah, I would have gotten into coding anyway. I did that. Well, I happened to do it the same week that I bought Bitcoin, which is a very memorable week for me. But
Changed your life that week, huh?
yeah, it was a big week.
Yeah, to say the least.
I also moved that week,
Oh, what?
so it was a big week.
Jeez,
But
man! Like, look at all these life events. You bought Bitcoin, you learned how to code, and you moved.
Yeah, and I moved all in the same week. But yeah, I had a deadline for a lot of things. That's why I remember it was like, I was like, by this date, before I leave the city, I'm gonna own some Bitcoin and I'm gonna write my first program. And I like postponed until the last couple of days, and then I did them all at once.
Procrastination.
Yeah.
We all can't avoid it, huh?
Yeah. That was how it was. But I was for the Bitcoin one, I was just like, I've been watching this thing for too long.
Yeah. So then what your first coding project, was it on something like related to Bitcoin, or was it just like, I don't know, like maybe a code academy or something like that?
It was more like that. I made a book reading application for smartphone. My first project was learning how to use an app called Cordova, which takes HTML and CSS and turns them into a website for you.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, not turns them into a website, turns them into a packaged application. And I wanted to do that because I'd been making websites for a long time, and I knew HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and that was an easy in to making smartphone applications, which I thought were cool. So that was my first programming thing. I made an e-reader.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, all right, now let's jump into your experience here at PlebLab because, you know, I was talking to Carr about it a little bit previously, but I think like, you know, the atmosphere here is something that really I haven't seen anywhere else where, I mean, you guys get a lot of great ideas and you're all working on like kind of different projects. So, you know, your experience here at PlebLab, how do you think that that's kind of helped you, I guess, not only like along your Bitcoin journey, but like just, you know, maybe more so the professional journey, whether it's, you know, helping you code or helping you finish some project or anything like that. How do you think, you know, just being around all these other kind of like-minded individuals has helped you out on that journey?
My first experience with PlebLab was with Keon. Keon is one of the original co-founders, and I followed him on Twitter because of his work on Stacker News, which I thought was really cool. And this was about the same time that Nostr was coming out as well. I was nagging him all the time that he should add support for Nostr to Stacker News. It's like 2 years ago. And he was quite open to it. But during the process of me interacting with him, he said, I'm thinking about starting a co-working space in my garage. And he was like,
Oh, wow.
He put out a call to interest saying, is anyone interested in doing this with me? And I was interested. I think I was living in Puerto Rico at the time. And partly I moved, I think part of the reason why I moved to Texas was in order to make it easier to do that if that panned out. So like about a month later, I was living in Texas, and Kyle Murphy and Carr got on board with his idea and turned it into PlebLab, which is a much bigger space than his garage. But
yeah, I'd say so.
so I did an interview with Kyle and told him about the projects I was working on at the time and what my interest was. Plus, I already knew Keon, at least as an internet friend. And so they accepted me right in as the part of the first cohort. I moved to Austin, I think the next day.
Wow.
I bought a bus ticket and moved to Austin. And then, I've been here pretty much ever since. And yeah, I really love working with other Bitcoiners. It's very energizing. Before I was mostly working on my own, and it's very easy to, for me, it's very easy to get distracted because I'm interested in too many things. So even here, I often get distracted, but it's usually other Bitcoin projects, especially that my friends are working on, or that they inspire me to do something. And so that helps retain a certain level of focus.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, all right, so the differences, like, let's dive into that. The differences of the distractions. So, like, when you're going around here and you're kind of, I guess, talking about other Bitcoin related projects, and you're kind of going into that with, you know, friends or whoever else is in PlebLab at the time, and you're just kind of, you know, walking around like I was talking to Carr a little bit earlier, the water cooler talk here, you know, so to speak, and it's quite different compared to, you know, the water cooler talk that you would get like a normal office space. So like, have you kind of noticed that, even though you're maybe not focused directly on your project per se, like when
Hmm.
you're talking with somebody else, like when you talk to somebody about their project or what they're going through, maybe even it's just their thought process, do you think that that kind of helps, I guess, like your own thought process and kind of like what you're going through, whether it's,
Hmm.
solving some sort of complex problem, or even if you're just stuck on one step and it kind of, or maybe it's something where you could even like revise an old step that you did to, make it more efficient, all that kind of stuff. Do you think that even though it's a distraction, quote unquote, it's not quite that because it helps you, you're in I guess the same state of mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, I resonate with all of that. A way to put it in my own words, my subconscious is smarter than my frontal cortex. And when I'm working on a project, I'm usually using my frontal cortex, and my energy is devoted to that. But throughout the day, I like to get up from whatever I'm doing and stop working in order that my subconscious can start working on the problem, because it's smarter than quote unquote me. It is me, but
Yeah, no, I get what you're
uh,
saying.
but going to other people and asking what they're working on gives me a chance to do that. It's less um, thought inducing, I'm not as consciously engaged. I'm more passive in that state, listening rather than actively thinking. And my subconscious works on things. Sometimes I'll go on a walk, and I'll just invite someone to go on a walk with me. I did that with Ted the other day. We went and walked around the block, just talked about what he was working on, and that helps. And my mind is thinking about some problem I'm working on in the back of my head. And when I come back, very often it's figured out a solution to whatever it is I'm doing, or reframed a problem I'm working on, or whatever. It just makes it better. So that in a sense, there is such a thing as distractions, and I do struggle with that. But I don't think that is doing that is not a distraction. I don't think. I think it's productive use of time.
No, I agree with you 100% because I think like, sometimes I think everybody kind of can resonate with that, whether it's like working on a problem in work, school, whatever. Sometimes you just stare at something for too long. Some people it helps like going in the shower or, doing something else.
Hmm.
And that, exactly like you said, your subconscious is still kind of working. And then, you just kind of have that eureka moment where you kind of figure everything out. But I think, like you said, like the unique aspect about PlebLab is like instead of like fully, I guess, diving out of that, and then maybe you think about it like 6 or 7 hours later, and that's when it kind of hits you. It's more a little, I guess, like active recovery, so to speak, where you're
Yeah.
kind of like going through it as the day goes on, and I think it makes like more efficient use of time, opposed to, like I said, where you kind of like forget about it. Maybe you do your commute home or whatever it is, and then you realize it in the shower like hours later, where it's like, oh shit.
Hmm.
And then you got to wait till the next day to go attack that problem, or you open your laptop and do it that night or whatever it is. Um, so I think it's super valuable. So, on that note, not only in PlebLab, like, you've kind of alluded to it, that you bounced around a little bit. What do you think of like the Austin community, Austin Bitcoin community as a whole? Because I mean, I think they're just from being here this past couple of days, it seems like there's a lot of unique aspects here that you don't get in a lot of cities. Whether it's like, not just bit devs, but there's like Lightning developer meetups, there's hackathons that are going on at all times. How do you think that that's helped you, kind of, I guess, grow not only as, a Bitcoiner as a whole, but like I said before, like kind of as, this freelancer that you are?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've been really excited to explore is the opportunity to teach, which I've found here in Austin. Partly because we have so many meetups, like multiple times per week. We've got some kind of meetup going on that you can go to. Um, and they all need someone to say stuff at them. They're all
Yeah.
looking for talent. And I happen to have a gift in that area, so I wasn't afraid to stand up in front of a crowd and tell them my thoughts about stuff. So pretty quickly, I got swept up into that scene, the meetup scene. Um, so that was a kind of a new area to explore for me. I'd done that in other circles, but not in Bitcoin circles before. But here, there's just so much opportunity for it, and I think people are grateful for it. They really seem to like all the meetups that happen out here, and all the people who get to speak at them. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think like
that's
the
been a real.
in-person aspect of all this is just like I can't like preach it enough. Like people don't really understand like how valuable that can be just
Yeah.
like long term for everything too. But on the teaching aspect of things, how do you think that because I think you need to understand something 10 times more than you just were to do it in order to teach it to somebody. So do you think that that's kind of helped with your stuff too? Like just not only that, like just have a deeper understanding, or do you think like, it's certain things like it just interests you so much that you would go through the rabbit hole regardless if you were teaching it to somebody or not?
More toward the former. It is more. I learn a lot while preparing for whatever I'm going to teach, because very often I'll know enough about a topic to say I'm happy to teach on that topic, but in the preparation of the talk, I learn a lot more
Mm-hmm.
than I didn't know. Um, so this happened when I was asked to do a presentation at the University of Texas on smart contracts. And so I decided to show them how to do oracles on Bitcoin. And I'm quite familiar with oracles and DLCs and all that stuff. I've done a lot in that on that in the past. But in order to frame something that I could teach in about an hour's time, and go from not having anything to having an oracle built out and like doing a test transaction, it took a lot of work. It took a lot of focus, and it took a lot of well, it was awesome. I learned a whole
Yeah.
lot by just making the presentation that I shared with the students.
Yeah,
So
that's
just
awesome.
stuff like that happens all the time, though. It's really amazing.
Yeah, do you think UT is embracing Bitcoin like as a whole, even though because of the community that's so big here? Because I mean, it seems like traditional education is still kind of far away from embracing it. But like you said, you've taught a course at UT. It seems like UT is kind of, I guess, moving a little bit towards that direction, whereas maybe some other institutions aren't.
Yeah, well, mixed bag. I don't know the full story about what's going on at UT,
Yeah.
but there is they were last year they were very open to learning about Bitcoin. They had a course about Bitcoin. I taught a section of that course called smart contracts, which is like a 2 day thing. Um, and it was very well received. There was like, according to the professor who arranged it, he said it was like one of the most attended things they had. It was like 60 students or something, and they all showed up. It was really good. But they didn't renew it.
Mm, interesting.
So I don't know exactly why that is, because it seemed to go really well. It got really good reviews and everything. But this year, when we were going to do it again, they didn't ask us to.
Huh.
So I don't
That
know.
is interesting. I wonder what the case is, because I imagine, like, I mean, the end goal of colleges as a whole, is to get their students prepared for jobs, essentially, right? So I mean, I imagine as more Bitcoin companies come online, kind of do all that, there would be more, I guess, demand for that. But maybe because it's the depreciated price or something like that. I mean,
Well, I don't. So
obviously,
in my imagination, I think of a college's job as to make money. Like
yeah,
they're a
that's
business,
fair.
and so I would think, regardless of their main concern is, did students sign up for the course? Because that indicates to them that there's demand for it, and they can attract students and more money to their
Hmm.
university by offering it. And on that front, I was very excited because it seemed very positive. There was lots of students there. They gave it rave reviews, and they were going to recommend it to their friends, and they learned a lot. Um, so I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
also not one of the people who was in the email exchanges with them and trying to
Yeah.
plan these things. So there's a lot I don't know about what happened there.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, super. I appreciate you coming in here and describing all the stuff that you do, and yeah, talking about your presentation on ordinals and what you got going on this week. For those who maybe want to catch up with you or figure out more of what you got going on, where's like the best place they can find you? On Twitter, Noster?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm on both of those platforms. I'm more active on Twitter than on Noster. You can find me at super_testnet. I'm also very active on Telegram. I'm especially in the Space Chains channel. I'm in the Noster channel on Telegram. I'm in the Drive Chain channel on Telegram. So those are great places to find me. And come to Austin if you want to
Yeah,
hang out. I'll be happy
exactly.
to meet you.
Yeah, I mean, Super's very welcoming. As soon as I walked in, he gave me a giant bear hug too, so it was awesome. So it was a great welcome, to say the very least, when I came in here. So, yeah, super, man. Thanks for coming in and spending some time with me, and yeah, it's sharing your knowledge, man.
You're welcome, man. Glad to do it
All right, man.
anytime.
All right. Well, yeah, if you want, feel free to go in and snag somebody else and would bug them and get them to come in here. And I appreciate it, dude. But yeah, everybody go follow super_testnet on Twitter. And I imagine he's got his Nostr pub key in the bio as well. So overall, great stuff. And